Hello students. Now in series of respiratory system will take the structure of respiratory system. Now human respiratory system, it consists of respiratory passage and respiratory organs. And the respiratory organs are pair of lungs. So we study the whole system. You can divide it into two. One is the passage and another is the respiratory organ. Now under the heading of structures involved in respiratory passage. So let's study one by one and I'll show you the diagram which I have drawn over here as well. Now the first structure is the external nostrils. Now this is the nose and the holes over here. They are called the external nostrils. So pair of external nostrils leads into pair of nasal cavity or nasal chambers. Okay. So the first structure is external nostrils leading into nasal cavities or chambers. Now these nasal cavities are highly vascularized. Vascularized means having very rich blood supply, and they have fine hairs and mucus secreting goblet cells in them. So the cavities have three characteristics, three things in them. First is rich blood supply, which we call they are highly vascularized. Second is goblet cells which secrete mucus. And third is fine hairs in them. Now why are these things essential? Now the air that you breathe in, that needs to be brought to the body temperature. So here the inhaled air gets warmed up, it gets humidified and it becomes dust free. The mucus traps the particulate matter, the dust or microorganisms also from the inspired air over here. So the three things, that is the rich blood supply, the fine hairs and mucus, they make the inspired or inhaled air clean. Clean from dust particles, particulate matters and also microorganisms. These are trapped by the mucus secreted from the goblet cells. Now when you are at high altitude and the temperature is low, when you are inhaling cold air, that also needs to be brought at normal body temperature. The high blood supply, and there are structures in nose which are called concave. They are kind of bones and they convert the laminar flow of air into turbulent one and also slows down its velocity. So this is the function over here. So the nasal cavities or the chambers, they perform the function of cleaning the air, bringing it to body temperature, and thirdly, it needs to be humidified. Why? Otherwise, the structures inside the respiratory passage will become dry and easy diffusion of gases is possible when there is moisture. Wherever there is moisture or humidity, easy diffusion is possible. So that is the nasal cavities. Now we take up the third structure. Now the air entered from the external nostrils into the nasal cavities and from the internals. You know, when you see the skull, you see there's a holes, that there is a like triangular cavity, and inside here also you have the openings which are called the internal nares, and whatever air you take in, it enters your mouth and then into the pharynx. There is a structure called pharynx. This you also learnt in the chapter nutrition. Now this pharynx is actually divided into three parts. The first part of pharynx, which is related with nose, is called nasopharynx. When it is related with mouth, it is called oropharynx. And when it is related with larynx, it is called as laryngopharynx. So the air that has entered from your nose, now it enters into a part of pharynx that is called nasopharynx. Okay, and this nasopharynx then opens into trachea through a part called glottis, and this glottis is opening at the upper part of larynx. So the nasopharynx or pharynx is connected with trachea through larynx, and that part of larynx is called as glottis. Let's see the structure over here. I have drawn from here. I have not drawn the, like you can take air from nose as well as mouth. You can keep your, when you have coryza, runny nose, and the nose is stuffy, you can do this mouth breathing. So air can enter through mouth as well as nose, and then after it is going to enter into the next part, that is nasal cavities, and then it is into the pharynx, and from pharynx it joins, then it is joining the larynx, and larynx will join with the trachea. So this is how the upper part of the larynx is called glottis. So pharynx opens into trachea through larynx. Upper part of the larynx, that is called glottis. So this is the explanation. Now I should tell you over here. Now there are two tubes. The trachea, that is the, you also call it the windpipe. I have written over here windpipe, and you have the food pipe, that is esophagus. Now they are like, trachea is in front of esophagus. The black marker is your trachea and blue is the esophagus or the food pipe. They are like this together. Okay. One is in front and another is at the back. So here you have to notice, during swallowing, when you eat the food or when you swallow anything, the glottis can be covered by cartilaginous leaf shape structure called epiglottis. So when you are eating anything, okay, normally when you are breathing in air and not eating anything, there is no issue. But when you are swallowing, this part, it needs to be closed so that food does not enter the windpipe. So here I have written, during swallowing, the glottis can be covered by cartilaginous leaf shaped structure called epiglottis. So this is closed. It prevents the entry of food into the larynx during swallowing. You getting it? So front part is the larynx and the back part is the larynx, that is connecting the trachea, and the back part is the esophagus, right? Now larynx is connecting the pharynx with trachea, right? And they are, one is in front, that is, this is the larynx connecting with the trachea. It is a very small part, and at the back there is the esophagus. Now normally what happens, air is taken in and the passage is open. But when you are eating, normally this epiglottis is like directed towards this esophagus, like this. But when you are swallowing anything, this flap comes and close the larynx so that food can enter in, it can go into the food pipe and not into the this larynx or and the trachea. So this is very important. You should remember epiglottis. Epi means upon. You know there is another word which is very common with you. Epidermis. So that is the topmost part of dermis. Epi means upon. So this part is upon glottis. And you know what is glottis? That is the upper opening of the larynx. Here I have written somewhere. Here, glottis is opening at the upper part of the larynx. So, this larynx, now we come to the next part, that is a voice box. Larynx, it is at the upper part of trachea, has an opening called glottis. I already told you what is it. Now, during swallowing, the glottis can be covered by cartilaginous lips. See, this is a direct passage. So, you need to cover this when you are eating, and this is covered by a structure called epiglottis. It prevents the entry of food into larynx during swallowing. And another thing, we can breathe while we are eating. Why? Because this portion, the nasal cavities and the mouth cavity, they are separated by the hard palate. The hard palate means the roof of your mouth. The roof of your mouth is called the hard palate. You can touch your tongue. You can fold it, like roll it and touch on the roof. So that part, the hard part, that is the hard palate. So that is the reason why you can breathe and eat at the same time. Now larynx has two pairs of vocal cords. One is the true vocal cords and another is the false vocal cords. Here. Now, true vocal cords are those which during expiration of air, it produces sound. When you breathe out, at that time the cord vibrates and it produces sound. And the false are those which are present above the true vocal cords and they are not involved in production of sound. So what is the importance of larynx? It is the connecting part between the nasopharynx and the trachea. The upper opening part of larynx is called glottis and that is closed when you swallow food by a structure called epiglottis, and larynx commonly known as voice box or the sound box, and it has two vocal cords. One is the true vocal cords, another are the false vocal cords. True are responsible for production of sound and false, which are lying above the true vocal cords, are not involved in sound production. So that is it. Now we come to the next structure. Here you can see I have drawn larynx over here. Now we are not going to take up many more details of larynx. Okay. Now the next structure that is connecting with larynx is trachea. Trachea is also known as the windpipe. You commonly called it the windpipe. Now the wall of this trachea is lined by incomplete cartilaginous rings. These are C-shape, you can see. If I draw C like this, okay. So if this is like this, okay. So this is what I have drawn. This is incomplete C. So these are incomplete cartilaginous rings, and what is the shape? They are C-shaped. They are not complete rings, they are incomplete rings. If it were a ring, it would be complete. And what is incomplete? This is incomplete. And so it is C-shaped. So these are lined by incomplete cartilaginous rings to prevent it from collapsing when there is little air in it. See, when the structure is having any structure, when you have balloon filled with air, tensed with air, then it seems nice and good. When the air in it starts, when the air in it is getting less, then the balloon shrinks and the structure becomes kind of flaccid like. So same over here. When there is little air, these wings, they help in supporting the wall of trachea. So you have to remember with reason, trachea is lined by incomplete cartilaginous rings which appear C-shaped, and this rings prevents it from collapsing when there is less air in it. Now, at thoracic 5 vertebra, you know there are 12 thoracic vertebrae. So, at the level of thoracic T5, so that is thoracic 5 vertebrae, this trachea bifurcates into two. This is now dividing, branching or bifurcating or dividing into right and the left. And this will be called now as bronchus. Singular is bronchus, plural is bronchi. So trachea is dividing into the right branch and left branch. So this is the left bronchus, this is the right bronchus. And if I say trachea is dividing into, here I have to speak bronchi as that is the plural. Trachea divides into bronchi. That is right bronchus and left bronchus. You are getting this? Trachea is dividing right bronchus, left bronchus, and these are this division are the bronchi. So they divide and then keep on dividing. So they divide like this. This is the trachea. Now primary bronchus is entering the lungs and still they are dividing. I have written somewhere over here. They divide and redivide. Okay, so they are dividing and redividing. So again they are dividing, so that the next division is called secondary bronchus. Now they are still dividing, so that is called the tertiary bronchus. And then when they keep on dividing, those are the bronchioles. So here you can read each bronchus further divides and redivides to form its branches such as secondary bronchus, tertiary bronchus and bronchioles. You can see bronchioles over here. Bronchioles are terminal branching of the bronchi. So it starts from here, the terminal part. Those are the bronchioles at the end. Now, that bronchioles now are attached with, you can see these are the like grape-like clustered structure. These are the air sacs or the alveolus or plural is alveoli. So here I have written bronchioles are terminal branching of the bronchi, which is understandable here. These are now the bronchioles. First, the trachea divides, bifurcates into two, that is a right and a left, that is a primary. The first division, then it divides again. So primary is dividing again, so this is the secondary. Now secondary is again dividing, that becomes tertiary bronchus, and it still keeps on dividing, and that is the bronchiole. Now that bronchiole at the terminal end would be called as terminal bronchioles, and they will be having the alveoli attached to them. Now let's read ahead. The next structure is alveoli. Now bronchioles open into alveolar ducts. Now I can show you. See, this is the bronchioles. Now you understand this. I repeat once again. Trachea dividing, bifurcating into two. That is the primary bronchus. Primary bronchus is dividing. So that is the secondary bronchus. Secondary bronchus is dividing. That is the tertiary bronchus. And tertiary bronchus divides. Those are the bronchioles. And the last part at the end where the alveolus are attached, those are the terminal bronchioles. Now this part, you can see this is appears like cluster of grapes, but it is not that. So this part is called the alveolar duct. You can see this. I have made rounded structure. Those are the air sacs or the alveolus. Now, this is the like what you see from outside. Now, from inside, this alveolar duct, you can see this alveolar duct leads into this is called the atrium, or plural is again atrium, and this atrium has the air sacs. You can see over here. The whole, this rounded thing is the alveolar sac. This is the alveolar duct. So this is the outside view. Inside, when it is sectioned, you can see this leads, there is another connection like this, and then there are air sacs attached. So this part is called atrium, and this air sacs, and these are the alveoli. Okay. Now we move ahead. Now bronchioles open into alveolar ducts, which leads into atria, which then opens into air sacs or alveoli. Now the membrane of this alveoli is very thin. Here I have drawn. It is having a single cell thickness. Alveolar wall, this is just one round structure, that is one rounded air sac. So this is the alveolus, and this is having thickness of only one cell. So this is drawn, and this is richly supplied with blood capillary. It has rich supply of blood. So this is what I have written here. It is very thin and richly supplied by blood vessels. Now there are about 300 million of alveoli, and the total surface amounts to about 80 meters square. So on an average there are 300 million of alveoli, and their surface area amounts to about 80 meters square. Now the most important part, now we started from external nostrils, then the nasal cavities, nasopharynx, then the larynx, then the trachea, where is it, trachea, and then the division, that is the bronchi and alveolus. Now this alveolus are the structural and functional unit of lungs. So you now have to focus on the respiratory organ, that is the lungs. In human body, lungs are paired. They are two in number, or you can say we have pair of lungs. So that is the right lung and the left lung. Here I have written pair of lungs lies in thoracic cavity. So these are the lungs. The top part, the upper part of the lungs, that is called apex, and this part which is flat, that is called base. So lungs have apex and base. Okay. Now they are covered by two membranes. They are double membraned covered, or you can say lungs are enclosed by double membranes. The membrane that is immediately found on lungs, that is called visceral pleural membrane. First I should tell you the membranes are called pleura. I write the word over here. The membranes are called pleura. Now the membrane that lies immediately on the lungs, that is the visceral pleura, and the one that is not attached directly on the lungs, that is the parietal pleura. Now in between this pleura, I have drawn, you can see this is the parietal pleura, and on the lungs, that is the visceral pleura. Now in between these two membranes, there is a gap, and that is called the pleural cavity. Now here there is secretion of fluid which is called as pleural fluid. The last line over here. In between the pleural cavity, filled by pleural, it is filled by pleural fluid. And what is the function of this pleural fluid? It lubricates the pleural membrane and that helps in easy sliding over each other without friction during breathing. They slide over, the two membranes slide over each other easily without friction during breathing. So that is related with lungs. Now here you can see the left lung. This is the left lung. Here I have drawn a space like this. So this is called the cardiac notch. Here there would be the heart. So this is the place for heart. So this is the cardiac notch. And this left lung, I can say humans don't have similar sizes of the lungs. Right lung is wider and shorter. You know, the biggest gland, that is the liver, that is placed on the right side of the abdomen. So because of that, I have written also somewhere over here, the right lung is wider and shorter. Here it is. It is wider and shorter. This is wider and shorter. Why? Because liver is placed over here. So it is occupying much of space, though the lung on the right side is shorter, but it is wider. But over here, because of the space occupied by heart, that is the place for heart. So this is long but narrower. Okay. This is short and wide. This is long and narrow. So that is the difference between two lungs. Now the left lung, it has one fissure. Fissure means you can see it is a kind of groove. So this groove or the fissure, there is one fissure which is like appearing oblique. So this is called the oblique fissure, and it divides the lungs into two parts. This is the superior lobe of the lung and this is the inferior lobe of the lung. Now, on the right side, the right lung, it has two fissures. This is horizontal, so this you call as horizontal fissure, and this is the oblique fissure. Because of this fissure, the right lung is divided into three lobes, that is the superior lobe, the middle lobe and the inferior lobe. So lungs are enclosed in thoracic cavity, and the thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity, in between there is a structure called the diaphragm, and this diaphragm is useful in the mechanism of breathing. So you have to remember diaphragm over here. Over here the G letter is silent. Students tend to make mistakes writing the spelling of diaphragm. Here the G is silent. It is diaphragm. G is silent. I am repeating because I see all now like numerous mistakes writing this spelling. So that is all related with human respiratory system. I give you the gist in few minutes. We just have a quick recap. Respiratory system. This is a system having respiratory passage. Passage, that is for entry of air, entry of inspired air to reach the final respiratory organ, that is the lung. So the structure involved in respiratory passages, there are structures which are involved in respiratory passages, and the main respiratory organ, that is the lungs. Air enters from the nostrils, then there are the nasal cavities. From here it is through the internal nares, it is entering into the nasopharynx. From nasopharynx, the pharynx is connected to trachea via the larynx through the glottis. So you can remember what could be the root. External nostrils, nasal chambers, nasopharynx, larynx, then trachea. Okay. After trachea, this trachea is bifurcating into two, the right and the left. So that is the division of bronchus. Then after bronchus, there are the structures at the end, terminal part. Those are the terminal bronchioles, and they have the air sacs which are called the alveolus, and they are about 300 million, and the surface area is about 80 meters, 80 square meter. So this you have to remember. And these alveoli are the structural and the functional unit of lungs. Lungs are spongy bag-like structures. You can see over here, they are spongy bag-like structure. Location is in thoracic cavity. You know what is thoracic cavity? The sternum in front, vertebral column at the back, and the ribs enclosing, like surrounding it. And at the lower part there is the diaphragm. If I draw sternum over here, right, there is sternum over here. At the back there is a vertebral column and then the ribs like this. So this becomes the thoracic cavity. Okay, so that is related with the, so this whole topic is important. In the next lecture, we'll take up exchange of gases. And here you have to remember, you should never forget, the wall of alveolus is very thin and having rich blood supply. So that's all for today. Please stay tuned. Please like, subscribe, and post your comments and queries in the comment section.